Hello, I'm back again. My name's Jo, this is Joey Sewy, and I'm here again with another step in my process about making my really special dress. So if you haven't seen the first part of this video series, I really recommend you hop backwards in time and watch the first part, which I put up a few days ago, and it was all about me trying on new dress shapes, pushing myself out of my comfort zone, getting to know what looks good on my body, and getting to the point where I knew what shape I would like to make a dress to be. Step number 2 is to find the pattern. Now that's what this video is all about. I am going to cut shortly to screen share with you my computer screen to show you how I went through that process, because basically I browsed around patterns and I struggled to find anything I would know definitely fitted all the criteria I had, wouldn't need lots of adaptation, and I was a bit reluctant to go for a new pattern because the fitting can be unknown and I've already got a lot of work to do, and basically I wasn't sure whether buying a ready designed pattern was going to actually meet all my needs. So what I decided to do was to try out, this is also a risk, I don't know why this felt less of a risk than choosing a ready-made pattern, who knows. Anyway, I decided that I would try out a product called TailaNova. Now this is basically a computer software, not a program because it's on a website, you don't have to download anything, but some computer software that allows you to design a garment. It is particularly strong on dresses and tops, although it does cover other garments, and I'll show you that. But you can choose, right, I want the collar to be like this, I want the waistline to be empire line, midline, low, I want the flare of the skirt to be this way, I want the sleeve length to be that way, I want the volume of the sleeve to be that way, I want the sleeve head to be gathered or not. So if you've seen the first video, you'll know that all of those are issues that I wanted to have or not have in the dress that I'm going to make. So I decided I would use this software to basically design the dress exactly as I wanted it. So I'm going to cut now to screen share with you how you go through that process, show you all the choices I made, and I'll see you at the end of the video. So here on the right hand side is the first dress that I tried on, the green dress, and on the left is the first of the patterns that I saw that I thought might be something like it. So you can see it's a pencil kind of shape, it's got cap sleeves, and if I scroll down to the line drawings, it has a really interesting dart detail on the bottom, and it does have an option here with plainer sleeves that I could have adapted, and to make the neckline more neutral, that wouldn't have been too difficult. So that was the first option, V1631. I also found this one, which I will come back to later as well because of the sleeve detail. But if I scroll down, so this is V1565, and if I scroll down, you can see from the line drawings that it is a pretty simple sheath shape in terms of the underdress. So that could have been adapted. The bow itself on the green dress over here on the right is not a functional bow, so it would have been fairly easy to just mock it up and to attach it in at the side seams of the waist. So that I wasn't too bothered about trying to mimic. It was just getting a sheath dress style pattern. And then the final one that I found, again, I'm going to come back to this for the cape detail. This one does happen to have a bow, but it's a very different kind of bow. This is V1579, and as you can see, it's got a cape, which I will come on to later, but it's also a sheath style dress. This one has quite a nice waist detail, a waist seam, sorry, and there is a split at the back, but that's fairly easy to create a seam down the front and to create a split at the side front instead. So that's what I did with the green dress. Actually, I've just realised I've done this in the wrong order, because the first dress I tried on actually was this gold dress, wasn't it? So the gold dress, the first one that I found was this Vogue pattern, which looks similar, not least because it's been made up in the same sort of fabric in the sample. So you see, this is a wrap kind of one. If we look at the line drawing, it's a wrap type dress. It has larger sleeves, which would be quite easy to bring to a cuff like the monsoon dress over on the right. But it looks a little bit like the twist dress because of the way that the wrap comes from one side and then the other. But then I also found this dress by Pipe Dream Patterns, which is actually not quite released yet. I've seen some tester versions coming out on Instagram, and this is just lovely. It also has an option to have the tie in the front, so the tie in the back is really eye-catching, clearly not what the gold dress does, but the tie in the front is also really eye-catching. And I thought this one that Jenny sews from jennysews.com on her blog, this one is really similar to the gold dress, and if you did that with larger sleeves, you'd have something that was really very similar to the monsoon dress. There is a split at the front, which you could either keep that split that comes from the wrap detail, or you could sew it together and have a solid skirt like the monsoon one. So moving on to the third dress that I tried on, there was this wrap dress. Now, a lot of you liked this wrap dress a lot more than I did, but I listened to you. And I decided I'd have a look at what kind of patterns came up if I looked for a wrap dress. And one of the first ones was one of the classic Sew Over It patterns, the 1940s wrap dress sewing pattern. So this has a collar. So if I look at the line drawings on the pattern, you can see that it does have a collar, but it does have a waist detail, and it has a wrap, which is very similar to the monsoon dress on the right. The sleeves are a little bit different, but it wouldn't be too difficult to make those sleeves bigger. You can see there on Lisa, the sleeves are quite narrow, but it's not too difficult to make the sleeves bigger. And it's not too difficult to omit a collar. It's more difficult to add a collar in if you want one, but it's not too difficult to leave one out. What I also found from Sew Over It was the Anderson blouse. So clearly not a dress pattern, but the Anderson blouse does have the gathering at the collar. So if I show you this version, you can see it's got gathering at the, I don't mean the collar, do I? I mean the shoulders. And if we look at the line drawing, you can see up there gathering at the shoulders and a wrap shape. So that could have been a good starting point for a wrap dress if I wanted to then add in a skirt from the waistline. But then I also found the Myrna dress from Colette Patterns, and this picture, the model just looks amazing. It has also the gathering here, and it has the shoulder yokes that the monsoon dress had, that the last couple that I showed you didn't. This has more fullness here. Now clearly this model has days more fullness than I have, but on smaller sizes, if I flick through to a smaller model, here we go, so there's just a little bit less. But if you are smaller busted, that gathering is actually quite flattering because it adds a little bit of bulk. You can see here that it's sewn together, so it's not a deep V, so I would have felt more comfortable in that. And I think that the waist panel is quite flattering, even if it isn't what's on the monsoon dress. So I think the Myrna dress is a really good option. The sleeves are slightly different. I think the sleeves are grown on, so there's no official sleeve seam. There are no line drawings, so I can't swear to that, but I'm just guessing. I can't see one in that drawing, for example. So it would have required a little bit of adaptation to get the fullness of sleeves of the monsoon dress. But as you know, it wasn't my favourite dress. But I do actually like the Myrna dress, and I probably wouldn't have gone to look for it or even considered it if it hadn't been for your feedback on the wrap dress. So you never know, one day in the future you might see something like that. One of the dresses that I did quite like, although it was a little bit questionable in terms of the fabric, was this one with the tie. So the pattern placement's not brilliant. They haven't put a lot of thought into that. And the type of knot I was trying to tie in that fabric was way too slippy. Now, I did get some advice in the comments about a different kind of knot I could tie. So that was excellent advice. I could have tried a square knot and it's unlikely to slip. But if I do make this dress, someone alerted me to the Meridian dress, which is from Paper Cut Patterns. And as you can see from the close-up that I'm showing you, but also the line drawing down here, it has the darts extended into ties, which was exactly what I was saying I liked about the monsoon dress. even though the tie slipped open. I actually liked the construction of the darts extending. Paper cut patterns are showing theirs tied at the back, which I think is quite flattering. The monsoon one, the ties probably wouldn't have been long enough and it was intended to tie at the front, but I quite like the tie around the back. I just wish the paper cut pattern models would smile, because they all look so miserable in the pictures. Anyway, moving on to the next dress that I tried on. So the next dress that I tried was, of course, the bridesmaid dress, or it's sold as a bridesmaid dress actually, but what I called the princess dress. This dress was beautiful on. I didn't put a lot of time into looking for a shape for this one, simply because I knew I wasn't going to make it. I knew I wasn't going to make it because the princess dress really needed the right fabric, and I didn't have time to really research that kind of fabric. I don't have access to a lot of stores. I didn't have time to research it, but I did find this Vogue dress, the V9373. And it has a different neckline, but the shape of the dress itself is very similar to the shape of what I'm calling the princess dress, what Monsoon I think calls a bridesmaid dress. But anyway, so if we look down at the line drawings, you can see it's got that hourglass shape. It is lined, it flares at the bottom. I quite like that neckline actually, and I was feeling like the V was a little bit too low on me anyway. I always feel happier in a high neckline, so potentially if I had wanted to go ahead with it, this might have been a perfect match. So the next dress that I tried on was, of course, the blue dress. I got lots of feedback about the sizing on this one. It was fair enough. I struggle to get dresses that fit off the rack, because if they fit my bottom, they don't fit the top half, and that was what a lot of you were observing. The size 10 looked better when I tried it on, but in real life, actually being inside the dress, it was a little bit on the snug side around my curvy parts, shall we say. But I did put some time into looking for a pattern for this blue dress. So the first pattern that I thought of isn't the same at all, except in one aspect, and that's the cowl neck at the top. So this is the Myrtle dress by Colette Patterns from Seamwork magazine, and I have actually made this dress, and I know that the cowl neck, I feel it works on me, and the blue dress had a cowl neck, so in that respect it was similar. Not in any other respect though. So if we move on then to this dress, this is so gorgeous. It's not the same in a lot of respects, but it does have the side gathers, so you can see it here. There's the back detail, not so many gathers on the back, and there is the pattern envelope, but if I go to scroll down, you can see that there are gathers at the front, and there are intended to be gathers at the back, but they didn't show up that well on the picture. It has got a little fishtail at the bottom of it, but you could either use that or not use that as you liked. But the big thing obvious on here is that it is a sleeveless dress, and that was not what I was going for. So then I found this one, which I think is possibly even better. This is a lovely dress. It has all the gathers. Here's the pattern envelope, and it has this cape at the back, which you could easily do one-sided if I wanted to completely mimic the blue dress, but I quite like it in the lighter fabric, two-sided, as shown. If we look at the line drawings, you can see that there are gathers to the waist, just like on the blue dress, and then it's got the cape that comes down at the back, just like on the blue dress. So it's really very similar, and I was surprised that I could find something that similar, and I really liked this one, V1535. Yeah, a lovely dress. So if I'd decided to go ahead and make the blue style dress, then I think I would have found a pretty good pattern for it. I also found this one, V1655, which was made from much more rigid fabric, not as flowing, but it does show up the gathers much better than on a flowing fabric. It depends whether you want them defined or whether you want them draped, really. But I thought it was a lovely alternative. And the neckline is kind of a combination between the blue dress that you can see on the screen now and the green dress that I was showing you earlier. So if I'd wanted to kind of combine those two dresses, I think this red one does it really well. I've also, coming back to the V1565 that I showed you earlier, the draped sleeves on this are really interesting. So if you look here, you can see underneath it's open where her arm is. So it's half sleeve, half cape. And then at the back it curves upwards. I think on this picture you can just see the skin there, so it opens. So I really liked that detail to make a cape as an option. And then finally I showed you this yellow dress with the cape. Again, that would be another option for construction of making it over the front. This fabric is much more rigid than on the blue dress, but there are several options there to make a cape style thing. The next dress that I tried on was this navy blue dress. Now, I didn't particularly like this one, so I didn't look for ages for a pattern, but I did find a couple of possibles. I found this one, which it looks similar because it's a similar kind of colour, but also it has the mesh overlay, and you could make that capped sleeves. It has the seam detail, so I thought it was fairly similar. And if we look at the back, and you could easily extend the length of it. And then also this one, which clearly is a bride's dress, but the top of it with the lace overlay is something fairly similar. So there might have been some construction information in that pattern, and maybe something about the shape that could have been useful. But the navy blue dress is kind of made by the crochet or the lace overlay. The shape itself is pretty simple, but you would need to find the right fabric to make that dress work. So the last couple of dresses that I tried on were then the leopard print dress and the black and white shirt dress. The leopard print dress had these dramatic sleeves, which the black and white dress had full sleeves, but not quite as dramatic as the leopard print. They were both shirt dresses, as I've mentioned. The leopard print had the V sort of neck with the ties at the neck, and they both had waist details, obviously because they're shirt dresses. They've got buttons down the front. The next one in the middle here was a full length skirt, whereas the leopard print dress was a full length skirt, but there was a seam around knee length where there was a gathered panel, which really isn't picked up at all in the pictures because the pattern is just so busy. But those were the kind of things that I was looking for, and I found quite a lot of inspiration for that one. So to begin with, there is the Wilder gown by Friday Pattern Company. Now this one is relevant because it has the dramatic sleeves, and I've made it quite recently. So again, it was kind of in my brain because I'd made it quite recently. So it has the tie at the neck as well, and it has a split, not as dramatic as the leopard print one, but it does have that split, so that could have been an option. Then moving on, I found this Vogue dress V9328, which is not in their special occasion section, but you can see it's got the V-neck, it's got dramatic sleeves, although in a different way, and the version that they've made up for the model, you can see how big and full it is. And there are some sleeves that are much more like the ones on the leopard print dress, but it's not a shirt dress, so I would have had to add the button placket if I'd still wanted that. There was also Vogue 9371, which is much more of a traditional shirt dress, and I thought that this was pretty close to the black and white next dress actually. They're showing it here in black and white, as it turns out. So it's a fairly simple or classic shirt dress style, but not with all the elements that I would want. And then I looked again at Colette Patterns just because I'd looked at them for some things before, and they do the penny dress, which is shirt dress on top, really classically shirt dress on top there. So you've got the yoke at the back, and you've got pocket details and bust seams. It does have a waist panel. They also have their salon, I think that's how you say it. This is a lovely dress. So it has, show you close up, it has shoulder yokes, it has gathering above and below the bust. It has a big waist panel, which was different to the dresses I was looking at, but creates beautiful shaping. It has fullness at the sleeve cap, although it has shorter sleeves, and it is a kind of just below knee length dress, but you could easily extend that again. So that was quite close actually. And then finally on Colette Patterns, there's the Hawthorn dress, which is much more of a simple shirt dress. It has a half circle skirt, I think, semicircle, yeah, half circle skirt, and a fitted bodice and a kind of part made collar. so the collar doesn't go all the way down, and it does have full shirt details on the sleeves. So those were ones that if I had been going to buy a pattern, I think probably the Ceylon dress is pretty close, or certainly ticked a lot of patterns and I liked it a lot. This one was quite close, but what I was finding basically was I couldn't find everything I wanted in one pattern. No big surprise there. So instead I went to a company called TailaNova.com. Here is the TailaNova homepage. It's TailaNova.com, the web address, and then you click Design Now. And here is what you have to do. So you go through these various options on the left here, choosing what you want for your design. So if I was going to design a new item, I go in and choose what I want to design. In this case it's dresses, but it could be tops. So dresses, and then let's start. I don't need a quick start video. So in silhouettes, what I decided I would do was design an above knee or knee length, so knee length dress, that then I would add the bottom ruffle onto, like I tried on the leopard print dress. So I'm just going to design something that goes to knee length and then add a section on myself. Fabric type is woven. Now I know I want a waist seam, but I also know that due to some software issue, if I select waist seam, it doesn't let me have a button placket. So I am going to go for closure and click button down placket and apply that. And then I want bust darts and waist darts. So here are my options now that I have narrowed things down a little bit. So I want to have, I think, an A-line shape, because flared would be a little bit too big. So I want A-line bust darts. So if I click that, it's going to apply over here. And you can see bust darts, waist darts, button placket. There's no waist seam, but as I said, I can add that back in. So if I then go to necklines, because you don't have to do these in order, and I'm going to select that I only want to see the ones with a collar. And I think I went for the cutaway round collar. So there we've added in a collar, and if you look over here, it's added in some collar pieces, collar stand and a collar. Now I'm going to go to sleeves and choose the kind of sleeve I want. So I wanted the dramatic sleeves like on the leopard print dress again. So 3/4 length bishop sleeves. So that's what I've gone for. And it's managed to lose the collar. So let's put the collar back on. There are some things that are still a little bit quirky or clunky in this software, so sometimes, as you saw then, I selected the sleeves and then it deleted the neckline that I had asked for. So there's the collar, there's the sleeves. Now back closure is irrelevant for me, so I'm not going to mess around with the back closure. You can see there is a centre seam. I think if I choose no seam it will lose the collar. Let's find out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to let me put that back. Oh no, there it is. So I've got no back seam because I didn't need one. I've got the darts. The one thing that this hasn't got, and in the sleeves there is no option to specifically add it in as one of these diagrams, is the puff sleeve at the shoulder. So it allows you to do puff sleeves here, but then I would lose the fullness at the bottom and I can't do both. But what I can do instead, so once you've got your basic pattern here, you can go into the ease section and you can play around with how much ease is in your pattern. So you've got fabric type, and I'm going for no stretched woven. The how fitted your pattern is. So I went for semi-fitted. I think on reflection, I probably could have gone for fitted, but I'll show you what I had it as. And then if we find sleeve cap, so you can see that the original ease of the pattern is 2.76 centimetres, but I can change that. So I can add it into a maximum of 10.16. I have no idea why it's only that maximum, but it's something that the pattern does. And if we watch over here, the sleeve changes shape and that curve there gets larger. And what I'll be able to do is between the notches, which are included on the pattern, I'll be able to gather it in at the top and create a puff sleeve by having all the extra sleeve cap ease. You can also, if you wanted to, play around with the ease at the waist. So this has got nearly 12 centimetres of ease. If you wanted it more snug at the waist, if you were familiar with what you liked, you could do that. So you've got all these values here that you can change if you need to. Some of them, personally, to be honest, I don't actually understand how they would apply to the pattern, but this software is designed for use by industry professionals as well as normal people on the street like me. You can do all these values in inches if you prefer inches or centimetres. So I've applied my changes. I'm going to close that. And then the next step is download your pattern. So I am already logged in as me and I have some credits on this system. So it's not going to take me to pay for this. It's not going to ask for any money at this stage, but it's about $5 a pattern. Approximately. You can also buy a subscription so you can get unlimited numbers of patterns for a certain period of time. Depends what you're going to do with it. And you can use all of the software for nothing as long as you don't want to download a pattern. So you can play with it as much as you like for absolutely nothing. So you can choose here what kind of paper you want it to output to. So if you wanted an A0 size for a copy shop, you could do that. I chose A4. You can print the patterns on the fold. So, for example, the back would be on the fold or not. You can have the measurements name put onto the pattern piece and then you would click download. The one bit actually I have missed out is the customize fit. So in here, it already has saved my measurements. And if I wanted to add a new one, I could put it here. This is a really huge part of the site, so I'm not going to go through the measurements, but I will just show you that this is where you would put your name. So I would put Joe. You can do it in any units you want, and there are lots and lots and lots of pieces of information that you need to input into the system so that the pattern comes out the right size for you. If you have more than one model saved in there, then you can choose them. So if I had other people's, or say sometimes I was larger than others, or I've got some from the past, whatever, you might have different options and you can put them in there. I can also edit an existing one if I want to. So this is the one I'm using. So I click use and then download pattern. And it's as simple as that. And at the end of that process, I had the pattern that I have been working on for the last 3 weeks or something. It's been a long sewing process, and in the next video I am going to share with you the ups and downs of that process because I'm nearly at the end of it, just a few little bits to go. So I have solved most of the issues that I encountered, largely to do with fabric, but that's for the next video. So I will share all of that and show you the finished dress in the next video. I'll see you soon. Bye!